It's the most highly productive activity any leader in real estate can do. If you lead people, that is your biggest growth activity. It's always keeping your radar open for talent. The more you do that, the more successful you will be. How do we do that? We incorporate dashboards. We track activities that force us to do those things because we as humans won't. Tracking your business in real estate is so important to an agent continuing to work on lead generation activities. And that also carries through to leaders in real estate as well, too. Just as leaders were always saying, man, I wish agents would just keep doing what they're supposed to be doing. If they just focused on getting new business all the time, they wouldn't have these gaps in productions. They wouldn't worry about shifts in the market. They would just stop waiting on business to come to them. Well, the same thing is true for business leaders or real estate brokerage leaders, team leaders, anybody in a leadership role in real estate. The same exact thing is true. And oftentimes they need to practice what they preach, right? They will sit and do a business plan and they'll use an ICC business tracker to plan out their production, conversion rates for business that comes in for their agents, but they themselves won't, right? They won't manage themselves and ensure that they continuously have a focus on growth activities. And growth activities starting from a brokerage manager position, typically that's going to be recruiting and retention, right? Growing and always staying in relationship with new agents. Team leaders are exactly the same. Always trying to stay in relationship with new personnel because we know 33% of real estate agents are going to not make it in their very first year. That's been an NAR stat for decades upon decades, at least 30 or 40 years. And then we know 87% of agents aren't going to make it 5 years. And the reason that none of these people are going to make it is because they don't stay focused on activities to generate new business. They don't. They take the holidays off. They take summers off because they're too busy selling real estate and trying to spend time with their family. They have lots of reasons for not doing the activities that get them their results, okay? Often referred to as excuses. Because they're human, and that's what, and leaders are no different. Leaders do the exact same thing. I don't have time to recruit, or I don't need to recruit. I've got who I want to focus on the agents I have, and then agents don't do their part, and then they need more agents. Then they got to hurry up and recruit, and it's not as fun because you're not in relationship and you're hiring out of scarcity, not abundance. You're not staying in relationship by adding value with talented people so that you're constantly growing organically as opposed, from abundance rather than reverting back to scarcity and waiting till you absolutely need more personnel and then you're hurrying up and lead generating. And that's exactly what solo agents do, right? Solo agents the same exact way. It's amazing the symbiotic nature between the two, right? But there's almost no difference. A lot of solo agents want to be leaders and don't realize, wait, it's really the same struggles at both levels. And then brokers get frustrated at agents when it's all the same exact struggles. It is all that issue of, can I stay focused on growth activities moving forward? Because the minute I fall out of growth and go right back into scarcity mode, which is I just got to put out fires all the time. I'm going to be a firefighter. I call that managing the status quo, right? You're in there trying to all the problems that come at you every day. You just say you're too busy with that to recruit new agents, or I'm too busy with dealing with my current agents to go out and stay in relationship with new agents, because that's all recruiting is. It's coaching agents at other offices. It's getting in relationship. Oftentimes it's not trying to hard sell or put a hook into somebody and get them to come to you. They'll come when they're ready, but they're in relationship with you, so they trust you, they just come to you. I mean, it can be that passive. Same is true with team leaders of real estate teams, and the same is true with solo agents and new agents with lead generation. Are you doing those exact same activities with members of your sphere of influence? No, we don't want to do that because they don't want to buy or sell right now. Well, they will come to you when it's ready, or they'll refer someone to you when they're ready. But I'm too busy for that. I'm in class right now. I got to go do this. I got to go to the Realtor golf tournament. I got to go, handle my one client that's looking to buy a house. We'll find any reason as human beings not to lead generate and not to focus on the growth of our business. So it happens at every level. And that's why In a leadership role especially, you need to have empathy and not complain about when agents don't do it. We got to guide those agents on how to stay focused on growth. That's the key to it. And we got to have grace with ourselves and realize it's hard and be self-aware that we need our leaders. We need real estate coaches. We need mentors. We need accountability partners. We need productivity coaches. We need sales managers and team leaders. If you're not self-aware and you say you can do it all yourself, well, then you better have the results and you better be doing those activities regularly, because if you're not, you're out of excuses. You can have reasons or you can have results, but you cannot have them both at the same time. That I assure you. So it's really important that you focus your activities on growth and not come out of growth. The most successful people in the real estate industry are the people that can keep themselves into a growth mindset and carve out time for growth. So how do they do it? We've talked about a lot of those components, right? They get a viral goal so that we have something to motivate us to move forward, right? We've talked about that. That's our first component of how to get that done, right? And then we move forward and we really focus on those activities, right? The activity-based indicators. So what are the activities rather than just focusing on results? And then, we try to create some level of accountability, like I've talked about, usually through other people, like that peer accountability through another human, whether it be that coach, that mentor, that productivity coach, that accountability partner, the manager, the leader. We create that out there, right? And that creates personal responsibility within us. Okay. And then how do we visualize it, right? We visualize that on some form of dashboard, often referred to as a scoreboard. I call them dashboards because I like to think of driving a car, right? Like you gotta know some certain key metrics at all times to stay focused on. Like you can't have a dashboard that has tons of stuff on it when the main thing I got to worry about is my speed limit, because if I don't know my speed limit, I have a lead foot. I'm going to go too fast, or maybe I go too slow, or I got to kind of keep my eye on those key metrics, right? So the dashboard becomes a key component of high producing leaders, high producing agents, high producing teams. If you don't have a dashboard, it's very easy to lose track of your speed, fall out of growth, and fall right back into just firefighting, putting out status quo activities, dealing with problems all the time, and coming up with excuses that are scarcity based of why you can't recruit and retain. Retaining is training, coaching, productivity. Recruiting is adding more personnel and looking to grow the size of your organization. For solo agents, same thing. Same thing. It's lead generation, converting leads, those two things. But it's amazing how we just cannot make ourselves do that. We'll do it for somebody else. You can get a 9-to-5 job somewhere and get paid, a fifth as much of what you would if you actually did it for yourself. But you go work for somebody else 9 to 5 every single day and slave like mad. You'll do it for fear of being fired. You'll do it for somebody else. Trust me. You'll go take a minimum wage job and do it all day long because someone else is telling you to do it, because you get fired if you don't. The minute you have only yourself to answer to, you've got no more peer accountability. You will completely come up with excuses all day long why you got to iron the clothes and do this and do that, and you won't do it. It's crazy. And you always hear me talk about it's crazy town, and you're the mayor of it, and that's why. But that's the quicker you can get aware of that and understand that you need some peer accountability is important. And the key component of peer accountability is to have a dashboard that holds teams and individuals accountable, whether it's just you and your coach, you and an accountability partner, you and your team. It's got to have multiple people looking at it on a regular basis. So let me go through some of the components of what that should look like on a leadership level. You can see here, this is our team dashboard. A couple components that are really important is the first thing, your dashboard, most dashboards just show results. Okay. And those are RBIs. And we've talked about those. Those are results-based indicators down here at the bottom of the slide. And that's like looking in the rearview mirror at where you've been in the car, right? You're looking out, you can't do much about it. That's where I was. Those are my year-to-date closings, or, the year-to-date gross commission income of our organization. It's analyzing what happened. And then we panic about the future, right? We haven't sold that much. Oh no, let's make changes. The future, could be bad if we're on a bad trend. And, it's important to look at those. Don't get me wrong. but it's not motivating and it's not actionable. It makes you kind of at the mercy of your business. Successful people don't operate that. They operate from abundance. They say, here's what I'm going to do to control my future business. So I operate it the way I want to, according to my plan, not the market's plan. And so that's why we make sure we put more of a focus on our dashboard on activity-based indicators at the top, ABIs. We want to be looking out the front of the car windshield, right? That's where we want to go. So we create growth activities there, okay? It's short-term motivation. It's very actionable, okay? And they're needed regularly, daily preferably, weekly at a minimum. Right? You know, for the solo agent, it's how many contacts are they going to make a day? How many posts are they going to do? How much content are they going to put out? You know, how many video texts are they going to send? And quite frankly, it's not much different from team leaders and brokers trying to recruit and retain. It's how many contacts are we making through the same mediums and the same communication networks as we would through, you know, to other agents? Are we staying in relationship? You know what I mean? Are we reaching out? Are we adding value? All the same stuff. It's just amazing how there is this complete similarity. And you know, between leadership in real estate and agents in real estate, they're almost identical. But I'll take it outside of that. I mean, it goes almost to all sales industries and all service industries. It's all the same stuff. So trying to avoid it and look for ways around it and creativity, which is the enemy of success in the service industry, because it tells you that there's other ways to get it done than the ways we're telling you. So if you're going to invent these new ways, that's interesting, but that's quite a dice roll, because most of us are out here trying to think of new ways 24/7. And again, the ways that work tend to be things that are very similar to what's being done at a high level. My recommendation is follow models that work and that have been proven and tested. They're not hard to do, but they're just hard to make yourself do. That's a big difference. Success is definitely simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy. Okay. But it's simple. It's not highly, you know, it's not highly difficult to understand. Okay. And that's where your dashboard needs to be too. So when we create a dashboard for that responsibility and that accountability, understand, you know, rule number 1 was, you know, focus on activity-based indicators on it, not just RBIs, not just results-based indicators. So it's got to be those contacts or those recruiting appointments or those training classes you're having as a broker. It cannot be closed GCI and just results that have already occurred, you know, contracts written, listings taken, things like that. They all need to be on there, but let's really put the focus on the activities. Rule number 2 is keep that dashboard simple. If we're going to review it daily or at the very least weekly, it's got to be simple. It can't be boring. We can't be reading through spreadsheets. It's got to be, you know, very much at a focus. So it's got to be something that we very quickly, we can see who's winning or losing at a quick glance. We can see if we're doing good and we hit our goals or not, if we're ahead for the year or behind for the year. So it motivates us like a scoreboard would in sports. And that quote, it's got to be so simple so you can tell if you're winning or losing at a glance. That's a quote by Stephen Covey. I'll tell you, one of the best books, you know, for running a business is his book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution, which I've shortened here to 4DX. He talks about the 4 disciplines, and one of which is create a compelling scoreboard. And that's discipline number 3. And a lot of what we teach is based upon that, because that book has been around for a long time. It's been a big part of my coaching platforms for multiple decades, I think 30 years plus. And it's that important because all top producing agents, teams, brokers, all tend to gravitate to a dashboard sooner or later so that they stay focused on growth activities. Okay. Now, again, principle number 3 of having an effective dashboard is we got to go back to keeping all of our goals SMART, right? Especially the M and the T in the SMART acronym, right? We need to be M, measurable, and T, time bound, right? And in real estate, we want to measure them by breaking down goals between the goals and the actuals. Here was our weekly goal. Here's how many actually recruiting appointments we've held, for example. Okay, or contacts we've made, for example. Time bound, it's got to be broken down into weeks, months, maybe quarters, definitely years. So we got to see if we're ahead or behind on our goal through the year. That helps motivate us. It helps keeps us focused so we don't get lazy. So when we get into the harvest season, when everyone gets busy and there's more sales, for most parts of the world, that's spring and summer. That's when lots of sales happen. Man, we got to keep focused so that we still are looking at our dashboard on a regular basis and we're moving forward on that dashboard, right? And that we don't just start putting out fires, handling the status quo. Crucial, right? So we think about what's on your dashboard, right? ABIs and RBIs, yes, right? And I mentioned a few of those, so I'll throw them out there. Brokers and owners are going to have recruiting and retention activities. Agents are going to have contacts and different content they're putting out there, and so will broker owners. And then RBIs, results-based indicators, is going to be a lot of, closed GCI, closed units, listings taken, contracts written, things that have already happened or in the process of happening we don't have as much control over. ABIs are what generate those results. So that's where we really want to focus our time, okay? That's the key to it. Now, one of the things I really, really want to point out, especially for leaders, okay? You're going to see the biggest problem that most leadership has is recruiting and tracking recruiting. Why? Recruiting is the highest value activity in the real estate industry. It's the hardest thing to do. There's a lot of leaders out there that are really good at taking listing appointments, but they refuse to recruit. They don't like it. They don't believe in it, or they only want to do it when they need to and things like that. That's why, because they're going to fail a lot more. Listing appointments, most of the time, they're getting them from their sphere of influence, and it's someone who wants to buy or sell their house. In recruiting, you're often meeting with someone who does not want to move companies. Very rarely does any agent want to move companies or move teams or whatever, right? So it's a much harder task because you're getting someone to make a change, and humans don't like changes. They like to stay in ruts. So getting someone to make that kind of change with their business becomes very, very challenging. And that's why it's the highest value activity. People that can recruit at a high level are the highest paid people in the real estate industry. And they end up, being guys like, that found big companies like Century 21 and Remax and Keller Williams and all the other big companies, right? Because they were able to get people to come their way at a very high level, right? And the people that run the bigger offices, the more successful offices are those people too. It's the highest dollar activity and they tend to make the most money. So it's much more difficult to do than just being able to take listings because you're getting people to see, to motivate, to make big changes. Just like, we do with agents, right? Agents, we're trying to say, hey, you got to do lead generation activities, but I don't want to do lead generation activities. So we're trying to get them to do stuff they don't want to do to get the results they want. That's really what recruiting is too. If we can get to our company, we're a production-centric company, we're a production-centric team or what have you. You come to us, we're going to get you to sell more real estate so you can hit the goals you want to do. But first you have to walk across these hot coals, which is change your habits, change your friends, maybe change your location, change your branding, whatever. I got to do something uncomfortable now, an uncomfortable activity to ultimately get the results I want. Just like I got to do sit-ups now to get the washboard abs I want. I got to, go to church now to get the peace of mind that I want. I got to do a lot of uncomfortable stuff. I got to eat healthy to get the health I want, the energy I want, you name it. That's just how it works, right? So that's why recruiting needs to be on every leader's dashboard. Because if you're not growing, you're dying. So you need to be in relationship with talent. You need to build a deep bench because you may say, I've got all the perfect people. Well, wait till one of them has a life-changing event or they want to make a change because people make changes all the time. They get divorces. They have their spouses have job transfers out of the state. They retire, they just change companies randomly, they go out of the business for a steady paycheck, they have health problems, they get cancer. All these things happen, and none of it has to do with you as a leader. But if you're not growing, those things are going to happen. Your numbers will go down. So how frequently are you staying at least in relationship with talent from other organizations? It's the most highly productive activity any leader in real estate can do. If you lead people, that is your biggest growth activity. It's always keeping your radar open for talent. The more you do that, the more successful you will be. Whether it's the admin staff, whether it's top producers, whether it's team leaders, whatever it is. Just like the time, we say it to our agents too. What's the highest activity an agent can be doing. It could be meeting new people or fostering relationships with their top people that give them business. That is the most productive thing an agent can be doing with their time. The more they do that, the more successful they'll be. How do we do that? We incorporate dashboards. We track activities that force us to do those things because we as humans won't. We as humans won't. I'll often say, so people will fight recruiting, and I'll often tell them, I'll say, hey, here's why you recruit, gang. Because, I've ran so many brokerages over the course of my years, and there were many times where 10 agents were joining my brokerages, a month, literally a month. I would say at least 6 or 7 years of that at different times, where you're getting 10 coming in a month. And I'd always say, well, maybe if we're lucky, one of those 10 will sell 25 houses a year. And I don't know which one it is. They'd always surprise me. Couldn't tell. I still can't tell which ones are going to actually do what they say they're going to do. Which ones are going to show up or which ones I'm never going to see again. If you got any experience in leadership in real estate, you're picking up what I'm putting down. You know what I mean? You just can't tell, right? And then like 3 or 4 of them are definitely just not even going to make it through their first year. Another 3 or 4 of them are going to say it's a lot harder than they thought. It's not HGTV. It's not just looking at houses. I actually have to get business. I hate that. So I'm going to go to some place that gives me business. Or I'm going to panic and go to a place that gives me a cheaper commission split or something, which again, getting paid 95% of zero is still zero. So, that doesn't really solve the problem. It's kind of a lateral move. So they just have to change to be changing because they themselves don't want to do the activities they need to do. So it's a very small percentage of agents that actually amount to something because they can't focus on growth activities. They didn't realize that was the part of it. They've been watching HGTV too much. They just see customer service. Well, you got to have customers to service. That's the part, no one wants to put on HGTV. They don't get that part. They think that customers, the other agent's just going to give them up to them, right? So they go to places where they think they can get that. So that's what I found. So the most successful organizations continued to stay in relationship, whether they're actively, depending on how fast you want to grow. Whether if they brought in a lot of agents like I spent those years doing, I would just let them sort themselves out. You know what I mean? Because I treat everyone the same. And I have my system. This is my system. And I'm going to make it available to all of you. Like we're going to put you through our onboarding program, tell you the classes you need to teach. We're going to meet with you on a regular basis, possibly weekly, to make sure and help you get through them. And I would find a small percentage of people would be willing to do that. But the ones that did, those are the ones we would give the most effort to back. And the other ones would kind of fail by the wayside. And I couldn't tell which ones were going to step up and do their part and which ones weren't. So therefore, it's hard for me to be selective from the outside in until I got them in the chair and see which ones actually were receptive to it and which ones succeeded. And that was my mentality. But there's a lot. It's very easy to say, well, this doesn't apply to me, or I can't do it because of this. I'm different from these other agents. All the excuses and the reasons come up for them not to get their results, and they self-select out of it. Don't have time, blah, 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 blah. All those scarcity-based activities. And you're all making them right now too. That's just what we do. That's what humans do. So certain ones don't. They get over that mental aspect and they avail themselves, and they're self-aware that they need coaching, they need mentoring, they need leadership, and they become coachable. And then they listen and learn, and those are the successful agents, right? And if you're watching this right now, I'm preaching to the choir because you're coachable. But that's the idea between leadership. That's why they need us, right? So that was my concept, and that's how my brokerages grew and became some of the most successful and productive in the country. And I wasn't really worried about people that left because I knew that I treated them all the same. They just didn't do their part to meet my standards. My standards worked quite well for people that came to those. And that's why a lot of teams will show their dashboards. That's why a lot of brokers will show their dashboards, say, here's what we're going to do for you. Will you do this? And they'll always say yes at the start. Of course, I'm ready to turn over a new leaf. I'm going to do it all. It's no problem. And then when they don't do it, it's on them. And that's the hard part as a leader. Remember, you can't save everybody. They've got to do their part too. That's the idea. So, and you're going to see that in leadership. So people say, how do I grow quickly? You grow quickly by staying focused on growth activities and recruiting really in one method or another. Whether you're going to bring them all in mass like that, that's up to you. I mean, you don't have to do that, that's for sure. But at least you should be in relationships so you can be selective. At least be in a coaching relationship where you're continually to stay in relationship with talent so that they come to you when they're ready. And you can actually get to know them better, decide if they are a good fit for your culture and your team, right? You may not have, the room or the space or the system set up to take in a lot and see if they respond to your systems. You may have to see how they look on the outside before you allow them in. That's fine too. I have a lot of successful organizations, teams, brokerages that do that, but they're at least always in relationship. They're always staying in contact. Okay. How do they stay in contact? That's how you do it. So that's the idea, is we got to make sure we stay focused on growth activities. From a brokerage leadership standpoint, absolutely on, are we engaging our top agents and meeting with them and training them and coaching them and mentoring them? That's your retention piece. And from a recruiting piece, we're staying in relationship and making contact with recruits. That's the tip of the spear. It's not looking at recruits join. That's an RBI, right? We got to be on the ABI. It's getting in relationship and cultivating them on the outside. Just like with solo agents, it's the same thing. How many contacts we're making, how many people are we adding to our SOI, how many prospecting contacts are we making, how many client events are we doing, how much content are we creating, how many social media touches are we doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's out there. It's proactively getting out there and focusing on our ABIs from the outside in. That's tracking activities in real estate.